Good afternoon, everybody. I guess everybody can hear me fine. My mic's on. All good. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here amongst a community of fellow professionals today, all of whom are focused on advancing the state of the art in networking. So thank you for having me over here today. I wanted to start off by basically highlighting that we within Microsoft, as I go through this conversation today with you, my focus is very simple. Basically give you a perspective, a sense of what motivates us in terms of our technological approach and our business approach, and specifically as that pertains to networking. And so hopefully you'll get a sense of what it is that we learn and what drives that learning within Microsoft, and hopefully that benefits all of us within the community. Our participation in OpenDaylight is based on a simple conviction that we have at Microsoft, which is in order to impact great change, we need to collaborate. And our collaboration is not limited or not isolated to our participation within OpenDaylight. It's been ongoing for many years in many different communities, some of which are listed over here. So it's a pleasure again to be over here today. Many of you are probably aware that within Microsoft, we deploy and operate some of the largest services on the planet, serving hundreds of millions of users on a daily basis. Some of those services are listed over here. These services span a diverse customer base. They span consumers, if you do Xbox Live Gaming, for example, and they span businesses. In fact, if you're an Office 365 customer, for example. In addition to operating these services at incredibly large scale, we also operate we deploy, operate Windows Azure, which enables platform as a service deployments and also infrastructure as a service deployments. Obviously, we also ship Windows Server, which is then deployed in many diverse customer scenarios and many diverse topologies. So just to give you a sense, diving a little deeper into infrastructure that we have to deal with, this slide should hopefully give you a sense of what we do on a daily basis. There is a lot of infrastructure deployed all across Microsoft, which is evidenced by the amount of expenditure that's listed over there. Specifically within Azure, and this might well be understating it, we operate tens of thousands of physical machines. We have over a couple of 100,000 tenants, so that's a multi-tenant deployment at large scale. And we affect tens of thousands of network changes a day in order to onboard over 1,000 new tenants every day. All of this runs on Windows Server, as do all of the other large services that we operate. Now, why am I listing these statistics for you? The way we think about, or the way I think about deployments is in a very simplistic manner. There's small, there's medium, there's large, and then there's gargantuan. And there are a few gargantuan deployments on the planet. Azure, Amazon, Facebook, Google, maybe a few of you operate those. And then there's the rest. The key point to note over here is that it is completely infeasible for us to be able to deploy, manage, control, and deliver services with any kind of SLA unless, if we were to do it in the traditional, rigid, inflexible manner that many of us are accustomed to from the past. It's just not feasible. Just think about this. So from our perspective, the way we look at it, this for us is reality. For us, a software-defined everything is what we live, breathe every day. And when we think about software-defined everything, we think about software-defined compute, the three pillars of computing: software-defined compute, software-defined storage, software-defined networking. So for us, that's a way of life. And that's where we learn our lessons from. Those battle scars, those lessons are distilled into a set of learnings that we care about. So all of the technologies that we are all working on, that we talk about within OpenDaylight, or that we instantiate in product or we internally deploy, are geared towards driving agility and flexibility for the business, being able to operate and deliver those services at extremely large scale. These lessons, by the way, are not unique or only relevant to deployments at Azure scale. These same lessons apply equally well to the other two types of clouds that we deal with on a daily basis. So we deal with what we call private cloud deployments, on-premise data centers, service provider cloud deployments, which are typically multi-tenanted, although that multi-tenancy could extend to private cloud deployments as well. And then the public cloud that we have to deal with, which is Azure. And these key lessons, which is these requirements of a software-defined data center, then distilled into networking-specific requirements, which are all about treating the network as a pooled automated resource, delivering on isolation and security guarantees, appropriate scale, low latency, great throughput, great performance, mobility, seamless expansion, elasticity, self-service, and minimizing operational complexity. They apply to all kinds of topologies spread across all three clouds whenever you're doing anything serious. So having said that, let me take a second and talk a little bit about SDN and all of us working on SDN. This is my personal observation, is that if we go and talk to, it's not even funny anymore, we talk to 3 industry pundits about what's SDN, they'll give you 6 different definitions. And it is what you want it to be. And it behooves us as a community, I think, to ensure that we communicate the power and the value of SDN to our customers, to the user community, and get their perspective and accelerate the adoption or the value that derives from deployment of SDN technologies. But perhaps it's worth thinking about the fact that ideological stances do not help accelerate adoption. So when we talk about SDN as a community, often the conversation devolves to a hardware versus software focused conversation. Where's the value going to be delivered? Or you will often see conversations where a particular organization or a particular individual might take a particular stance on overlay versus underlay, Often you'll see, if I have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So if I've implemented an overlay technology, then, well, everything underlay is just dumb pipes. And I'm unsure that that helps further the conversation in terms of driving value for the end user. Or the conversation devolves into simplistic protocol battles, NCAP format battles, or control management protocol battles. Again, unsure whether that's furthering the value proposition that we want to deliver to the user community. Or it devolves into perspectives around how value will be realized in the future in terms of businesses. So, is our industry standard platforms going to take over or not? These kinds of side conversations muddy the waters, in our opinion, and lead to both industry fragmentation as well as customer confusion. So something to think about as we think about SDN, its promise, and how to deliver on that promise to the end user community. The lessons we've learned and that we apply both internally in deploying and operating our own data centers or for our customers, specifically vis-a-vis networking, are that we need to focus on the application or the workload. We need to take a holistic approach that encompasses overlay technologies with the right policy enforcement mechanism and maximize the infrastructure, the underlay that's available. And last but not least, this is a community that's coming together to deliver value to our user base. And so extensibility, standardization in the way we communicate between layers or between systems is critical. That can occur in different ways. It can occur through code and through standards bodies, but those are synergistic. And it's interesting perhaps to focus on those, thereby delivering all of the value that's listed at the bottom to the end user community. And that's the approach that we have taken, and that's the approach we'd like to continue to take in conjunction with the rest of the community. I promise you this is the only slide that talks about Microsoft-specific technologies, but our perspective, which was shaped by what I said earlier, in terms of the lessons we've learned in delivering services at scale, the lessons we've learned in operating gargantuan data centers, and the lessons taught to us by our customers, whether they are enterprise customers or service providers, delivering services to their customers, are instantiated in the products we deliver and the mobility we enable through hybrid cloud deployments spanning all three kinds of clouds that I referred to earlier. As we look at OpenDaylight, we look at OpenDaylight as a wonderful opportunity for all of us to collaborate in order to deliver on this standards-based, interoperable SDN stack to our customer base. We look at OpenDaylight's efforts as synergistic with efforts of other consortia. That includes Open Networking Forum, or the work that we do in UCI, or the work we do in DMTF to ensure standardized schema so we can indeed have configuration management operations regardless of protocol, whether that's OVS or what have you, that actually allow us to work together in a collaborative manner and realize this end user benefit that we are all promising. And so our participation in all of these fora is basically driven by a view to actually realize this value. As far as OpenDaylight is concerned, it's wonderful from my perspective to see how the community has evolved. I remember about a year and a quarter ago, maybe a year and a quarter ago, when a few of us had gotten together and we discussed construction of this forum. Our participation was from the very beginning or close to that. I've had the privilege of serving on the board, helping with the governance. I've had the privilege of serving on the technical steering committee. I haven't contributed any code, so I envision very soon worthier people than me serving on the technical steering committee and driving that forward. We have very active participation in Hackfest. And going back to what OpenDaylight is focused on right now, we as a community are focused on. From our perspective, it's very interesting to see the core platform standing up and then enabling a rich ecosystem of infrastructure applications and potentially end-user-focused applications that can leverage infrastructure, leveraging a common platform. At the same time, we look forward to seeing increased collaboration so that the configuration, management, control happens across a heterogeneous set of systems that constitute network infrastructure that is then deployed by our collective customers. That's all I had for today. I wanted to walk you through our thinking and where we are. Thank you again for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.